So we had raised our first bit of venture capital by that point, and we were burning capital building out the product that was going to become the first digital dental insurance product for small business. And we're burning money, growing the team, building everything we need, but we still can't sell anything because we don't have Department of Insurance approval.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had put in a variety of filings just waiting for approval from one of the states. And it was 6 months later and nothing had happened yet. And we're up against it at this point. We've got about 2 or 3 payroll cycles left of cash on the books.
Whoa.
We've got, let's say, 2 months of runway, maybe less, before the whole thing goes belly up. And so we had this huge come to Jesus moment with our board and our investors, where there's literally going to be no company. It's going to die on the vine before we even have a chance to sell anything and see if we have product market fit.
Welcome to the RockstarsRocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to RockstarsRocking, where you know it, each and every single week I have the only finest guests I can round up, and this week is no different. This guest, let me tell you a little bit about him. His name is Alex Frommeyer. He goes by the name Fro, and with that last name you can imagine why. No offense, Alex. Hey buddy. He is the CEO and founder, or co-founder I should say. He's got 2 other partners of Beam, originally Beam Dental, and now Beam Benefits. I am a huge fan as an advisor, broker, consultant. We do quite a bit of Beam Benefits, which I'll get into the where and the why and the how later. But let me just read you this because I thought this was pretty cool. In 2023, Goldman Sachs ranked, or I guess awarded Alex, or Fro, excuse me, as the most exceptional entrepreneur at their Builders and Innovators Summit. And the CEO and chairman of Goldman Sachs, David Solomon, said, quote, "Alex has been a visionary in the field, pushing forward innovation and redefining markets." He's got some really cool stuff. His story is unbelievable. And I'm so excited to have you as a guest. And I'm so excited for everybody listening today. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Eric. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Man, I am super pumped. I wasn't kidding. For those that I know well, you've probably heard this story because I've talked about Beam before, probably with you as a partner and or a client. I first learned about the Beam brand of benefits, or I should say dental, in I want to say it was 2015. Honestly, it was toward the end of 2015. I'll never forget. In fact, I have a photographic memory. I can picture talking to a few of your sales reps at the time. Don't know their names. And I was super excited about everything. And then they laid the bad news on me. They said, we're only in so many states so far. We just launched, but stay tuned. And flash forward, long story short, a few years ago, a mutual friend of ours, an employee of yours, a top rock star of yours, and a friend of mine, Lori McGonigal, got hired and said, "Hey, you gotta look at Beam." And dude, the rest is history. I'm so pumped to be able to represent Beam and put such an incredible benefit into all of our clients that we can across the country.
It's such a cool story from my perspective because 2015 goes back to the very early days of our business. We probably were only in California, maybe Texas at the time, and very much learning about broker-led distribution. When we first launched our digital dental insurance policies for small businesses back then, we hadn't done anything in the brokerage community before. So we were learning from scratch what it took to be successful with the go-to-market strategies that we now think of as, very normal and repeatable parts of our business. And so it's fun to think back on that era and how much we were learning and how much we had to learn just to be successful as a company. So it's really cool that you've been tracking us that whole time.
I really was. And the most exceptional thing, excuse me, for me, that I remember seeing and hearing about and learning that day in 2015 was, and anybody watching on YouTube, you'll see it if you're listening, I'm holding up their Beam dental kit. this to me, I got the pink one here, but I got the blue one and the green one behind my desk. I just thought it was a really unique way to sell a commodity-driven product, at least from a broker's perspective, to show a CEO, a CFO, a COO, an HR representative team that, hey, you're already buying dental. You're already asking employees to fund some of the dental. And assuming at the time, of course, I didn't know, but assuming Beam is going to be competitive with rates and competitive with everything else, why would you offer a product that doesn't give somebody something that they're going to buy anyway, something that they want, something that they need, something that they replace often? And I just thought it was a unique entry point to gain attention in the marketplace. And I know to this day, this has single-handedly helped me change the business as far as bringing Beam in from some other legacy, more, no offense to them, I mean, they're carriers, but more status quo driven dental vision type carriers. Can you talk about the genesis of where the idea came from? Because to this day, it's been what? More than a decade. I don't see any other company doing anything like this yet. Do you have a patent on it? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so the Beam toothbrush is really what started our company. And when we as a business first got going, my two co-founders and I, who are all three of us are engineers by training, we saw the opportunity through some family members that are in the dental industry. My sister, for example, is a dentist.
Oh,
We saw that the dental field was very fragmented and fractured. Innovation takes a very long time to leak its way through healthcare broadly. And dentistry had the kind of double whammy issue of having some of the same sort of regulatory constraints that healthcare broadly has. So something innovative might take years to get into the market because of that. But dentistry is also very fragmented in that there's not these big health systems where you can take a new innovation and kind of force it top down through a channel. But most dentists, of course, own their own practice. Most dentists are still independent solo practitioners. And because of that, each one of them is a buyer of all of their equipment, all of their know-how, all of their processes. So you could theoretically have some amazing, innovative, new technique or product for dentists, and dentists may choose to adopt it or not adopt it based on their particular preference and their interest. That is slowing down the field of dentistry. So goes our logic back in 2012, and gave us the idea to use the vehicle of dental insurance to speed up innovation and connective tissue, digital connective tissue between the dental community, the patient, of course, who's critical in this, and the insurance business. So we started learning about dental insurance through that thesis and arrived at an understanding that it was very difficult for dental insurers, especially at that time, to be able to tell the difference between good risk that you want to lean into and take, and then bad risk that you might not want on your book of business. So the genesis of the original connected toothbrush, which the Beam brush was the first connected toothbrush, the genesis of that and its inclusion to this day in our dental plans is to help create more connective tissue between the patient's dental hygiene habits. Are they taking care of their teeth every day or not? And underwriting insights that can help us better understand and select the best risk available in the market into our book of business at any given time.
So that's interesting. So a dental background through family. Did you, when you started, and for those that don't know, you graduate, I think you have your master's too from University of Louisville, Kentucky. Yep. But when you started college in general, even undergrad, did you have anything in your mind about dental? Like, or is it a sheer coincidence? Like, how did that even come to be? Was it like a project from your business professor and you dove in and here we are?
No, so starting college, I was actually very interested. I'm a civil engineer specifically by training. I was very interested in real estate development and construction. So I'd grown up with other family members in the
similar to dental. Similar.
Yeah, very, very similar. It's micro engineering and macro engineering. It's all the same thing. So I was a lover of building and creating, and I would still say that's true today. So I build and create in the insurance and benefits context. I build and create businesses as an entrepreneur, but it was really ultimately an opportunity that I only saw later. My sister was a couple years ahead of me in school, and so she was in dental school as I was wrapping up my engineering degrees. And my co-founders were in engineering school with me. And I think we all saw that our destinies, if nothing changed, we were going to join big Fortune 500 businesses like GE and ExxonMobil. And, we were going to do really good engineering work, incrementally advancing these big businesses down the field. And you were going to be, one of tens of thousands of employees, maybe hundreds of thousands of employees. And so we saw that as kind of our base case for our careers. And while there's nothing wrong with that at all, I think we saw and felt more of a creative muscle, and we wanted to be builders of something. And so that got us generally interested in startups and entrepreneurship, though there wasn't much of a startup scene to reckon with in Kentucky. So we were a little bit of, odd ducks, I would say, in our university ecosystem and even more broadly in our area. And so we were really looking for ideas to, pardon the lazy pun, sink our teeth into. And because my sister was in dental school, one of my other co-founders, his mom was a dental hygienist for her whole career. We just started getting really fascinated by the dental industry and found that it's actually a place where there's meaningful innovation opportunity. And then as we got deeper and deeper into it, we entered the benefits business because that's how most dental insurance is distributed. And we realized that employee benefits is a place where there's lots of innovation opportunity. So as we get deeper into these businesses, we actually find more opportunity, not less, over time.
So what was your hardest, or I should say most challenging aspect, if you could pinpoint one, maybe two things, when you had the concept, you got the idea, and then ultimately you launched the actual Beam dental insurance and such within, I believe it was like 2014. What was the most challenging thing launching the insurance side? Was it the state regulatory? Was it something internal? Scaling? I mean, you tell me. Everything.
How much do you have?
Right. Well, bottom line, what's something that really stands out? Any particular story maybe that you could share?
Yeah, that's what I was going to rotate to. I think there's a story that describes the grit and determination it takes to build any sort of company, regardless of what it is. And certainly, entering a regulated, capital-intensive market like insurance is no joke, and it almost killed our company. So
really?
we had started the business. We had built already what is a very hard product to build in the Beam toothbrush, because hardware is also very capital intensive. You have to cut the molds to shoot the injection mold plastics, the electronics. There's a lot of inventory you have to be able to buy. And even though you're a big buyer in dollars to you're a small player on the global manufacturing scale. So even finding manufacturers willing to work with you early on is incredibly difficult. So we had already chewed through some meaningful challenges to stand up our hardware platform and the IoT infrastructure that allowed data to flow from the brush to your smartphone. And we thought that was a challenging business build. But then we got introduced to the insurance field. And because of that regulatory overlay, where each state, of course, controls the carriers that enter its market, and you can't sell one policy and make $1 of revenue until some department of insurance somewhere approves you.
Sure.
That was, for us, a meaningful challenge, insofar as no one had really entered the life and health business in a meaningful way outside of Oscar, who had done so by building a very special relationship with the New York Department of Insurance, where their business was based. So Beam was really one of the early insurtechs to market. And so we were breaking new ground in a way for our business model entering these markets. So we had raised our first bit of venture capital by that point. And we were burning capital building out the product that was going to become the first digital dental insurance product for small business. And we're burning money, growing the team, building everything we need, but we still can't sell anything because we don't have Department of Insurance approval.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had put in a variety of filings just waiting for approval from one of the states. And it was 6 months later and nothing had happened yet. And we're up against it at this point. We've got about 2 or 3 payroll cycles left of cash on the books.
Whoa.
We've got, let's say, 2 months of runway, maybe less, before the whole thing goes belly up. And so we had this huge come to Jesus moment with our board and our investors, where there's literally going to be no company. It's going to die on the vine before we even have a chance to sell anything and see if we have product market fit. And we were forced basically to cut expenses really hard to preserve as much runway as possible. And so we had a 24-person team at the time. This is 2016. And we had to cut that back to 8 people. So 2/3 of the business we had to lay off. Incredibly difficult to do, not just for the, the human aspect of this, but because were the 8 people, like, were we going to stick around, to see the company through to the ability to get regulatory approval, which we didn't know when it was going to happen. And then even if everybody stuck around, was it going to work? We didn't know if the product was going to be received well by the brokerage community, if it was going to be received well by the small business customers. We didn't know what else was going to break along the way. And so the 8 of us hunkered down. A few months later, we finally got regulatory approval. We started marketing the product, and we found, thankfully, very rapid interest from the brokerage community because of some of the differentiators that we kind of opened the discussion with. And that allowed us not just to survive, but to raise additional capital, which then allowed us to go from being in this very hunkered down defensive mode to much more of the offensive mode, ultimately opening up more states, being able to market the product more broadly, and finding more brokers that have become some of our biggest and strongest partners over the years.
Did you find, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, I'm thinking out loud, is it one of those things where it's easier to get approved in more states once you have a couple under your belt? Not because of you knowing more what to do, but because some of the states lean on each other to say, well, if it's good there, it's probably going to be good here. Let's take a look.
Definitely. There's, the DOIs they make their own independent decisions, but there is precedent and there's momentum as well. Sure. And so ultimately it was California that gave us regulatory approval first.
Oh, wow.
That being recognized is actually a pretty tricky Department of Insurance to enter with. That, I think, teed up very quickly maybe 10 or 15 other states that used, I think, the momentum from the state of California as a little bit of the justification and air cover for us entering as a carrier in other markets. And then, of course, we got better too at how to, construct the filings and articulate our strategy as a business, because we were also learning what our strategy was real time.
Right.
And as it started to work in market, that created the snowball effect that now has Beam in 45 states around the U.S.
So I was going to say, I thought you were close to getting every state. I know there's still some outliers. There's still some states that are really tough. And actually, funny enough, you're in some states that I do business in that are notorious for being tough, but you're already there. So it is weird how from a broker's perspective, I think to myself sometimes, genuinely, I'll pick on them for a minute, and I love you, Washington State, but you're in Washington State, which is still tough to do business in. But yet you weren't as of the recording right now, you're not in North Carolina, but I've heard brokers say North Carolina is actually a little bit more simple. So it is interesting how the perception is from my perspective, but talk about that. I mean, congrats. I think you said you're launching in North Carolina here in the next short while, maybe even by the time this is airing.
Yeah, that's so it's next up on our list, and we're just running kind of a small spike initiative inside our business right now, really trying to get the final few states to open up so that way we can at least have the option to begin marketing in a truly national view. North Carolina should be next on that list, coming up here very soon. And from our perspective, the business is an interesting one in that we could have theoretically never expanded beyond California, and it's such an enormous market. We could still be meeting all of our growth goals and still developing as a business in all the ways we might imagine just by staying focused on that one place. But for us, we really think that it's the SMB customer, it's the small business that is getting such a underserved version of their ancillary benefits that we've always been compelled and had some opportunities to exploit this. We've always been compelled to go as broad as we could, as quickly as we could, so that way we could engage that small business community in a meaningful way. And so over the years, that's meant expanding geographically. And now more recently, it's meant actually expanding our product portfolio as well, beyond dental insurance, where we started, now into a more robust portfolio of ancillary benefits.
Yeah, and I want to get into that. And don't worry, those listening, you need to hear this because this is pretty cool too, how they've expanded from just dental and vision into DI and other sub products. But before I do that, I want to stay on dental and vision for just a second. Talk to me about the Beam perks. Where did that come from? How did that get thought of in general? To me, I originally looked at it as kind of, and this is great, as a gamification, getting employees and the companies to realize the power of it sounds weird, but making dental fun, right? Trying to put something into it as an incentive where they can, in this case, earn, I used to say, forgive me, I used to tell people points, but perks for the right term. Where did that come from? Was gamification on your mind? Like, tell me where the genesis was.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly the way I would describe it. Back in when we were first getting started, and my co-founders and I were first really looking at what was happening in the technology field broadly. One of the businesses we were really inspired by early on was Fitbit, who was creating a gamified activity monitor, right? And kind of kicking off the wearables movement. And so we saw another very common health behavior to activity to be dental hygiene, right? Taking care of one's teeth. It's something that we all participate in pretty much globally at this point. And then there was another field of study that I think has since become much more popular, but was pretty nascent at the time around gamification of health behaviors and behavioral economics, I think, as it's more broadly known, which is what are all the little ways you can incentivize behaviors to change by using economic principles in one way or another. A classic example in behavioral economics is allowing people to default take some of their payroll for retirement. And if you make that a default thing that will happen unless you select out of it, doing some payroll deduct into a 401k or into a pension plan or something, then 90% of people will always save for retirement. They won't actually go through the trouble of, navigating into a system and opting out of their retirement plan.
Right.
But classically, all of those retirement plans were opt-in. And so you had to go through the trouble of opting into saving for retirement. So by simply changing the default to default on instead of default off, more people than ever are successfully saving for their retirement, an objectively good thing for your economic health. And so these little things, it turns out, that we put into the design of our products and our business models can have these enormous impacts over time. And so we saw that there's like lots of places where this shows up in healthcare, where we end up building bad habits around eating, sleeping, working out, brushing our teeth, and a variety of other things that if you simply could gamify it and turn it into a behavior or a habit that you get rewards for, it creates a prevention and wellness angle to a business model that can turn into great health outcomes over time. It could also turn into economic incentives over time. And we were really fascinated by that concept broadly. And so that's reflected pretty heavily in our perks program today. And then I think for the brokerage community in particular, we found pretty early on that Beam was objectively innovating on different parts of the customer journey in ways that are somewhat hard to describe to the customer. But since the brokers had, as you just did, they have the physical product, the Beam toothbrush and the perks pack in their hand, physically represented, it becomes symbolic of lots of innovation that Beam might be doing. But you can kind of wrap it up in a bow and say, here's an example. Like, here's what I mean by Beam as an innovative company. It's a fresh take on ancillary benefits. And so it still functions as this very literal piece of innovation, but also symbolic piece of innovation in our business broadly.
So it's interesting. You talk about the physical, having a physical product. So we're a digital virtual business, my brokerage, and I'm blessed that I'm able to do it. We started it pre-pandemic, but it's not because I'm a visionary. It's just more time efficient. So I have clients. In fact, 99% of our employer group clients, to be honest, I've never met. I've literally done a virtual handshake. I've never met in person. We have some accounts that are multiple thousands, and we have accounts that are all the way down to 3-4 people. I've just never met them. And I'm fortunate that they do business with us. But here's the point. when I started representing and sharing the Beam story with clients, because I thought it was a good idea for them and they were competitive and we were shopping against other more legacy dental carriers, I didn't have this in my hand. I just didn't. And it's nobody's fault. I just never thought about it. So I would share my screen on my Zoom meeting with a prospect and I would show the brochure, the flyer, and I'd go through it, how great it is, and woohoo. And we were not closing as many deals for Beam. We were still getting dental and vision. It just wasn't going through Beam. And I just had the idea, because I'm a visual person, I'm a tangible person. And even though we're virtual, I said to whomever, it might have been Lori, it might have been anybody at the time, I said, can you send us a couple of these? Because I want to use it as a selling prop, for lack of a better word, on screen. So I can really, I do it every single prospect meeting and employer meeting. I pull it out, I hold it up, I show I'm not making this up, I show a couple different colors. And that, look, I don't think I changed my selling proposition. So that in and of itself, in my opinion, is what helped me get more people to, quote, buy into the story I was sharing. So I think that's incredible. And you're probably already doing it, but anybody from Beam listening, if you're on the sales team, make sure you send brokers a product so they can actually hold it up and take it with them and show them.
Yeah, we think that's a really important part of the story of the business, to your point. And it also, I think, importantly describes how our founding DNA is so different than the industry norm. And if you think about all of the carriers that we compete against, almost all of them are not just way bigger than us,
right,
but they were all founded, in some cases, more than 100 years ago. And so there's really no well-known founder story, and the founders are long gone, of course, of these businesses. And so that's interesting in and of itself, right? You're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. It's easy for us to connect. A lot of the businesses that we might partner on are also, we're selling to the entrepreneur that owns the business and started the business. So there's already some shared entrepreneurial DNA in there.
Sure.
And beyond that, I think we think of the Brush and the Perks program and some of the other things that we've done from an innovation perspective as being things that are only possible to build if you're taking an outsider's viewpoint on the market. If we had come from Guardian or MetLife or one of the other carriers, we might be building our own company, but it might look a whole lot like Guardian or MetLife. Very successful companies, and that might also build a successful business. There's obviously more than one way to build a successful company, but nobody else is building the Brush. That's kind of uniquely because of who my co-founders and I are, that we arrived at that business model and that particular product. And that's a obviously very unique and differentiated thing that we do today.
Dude, I'm not going to name names, companies, carrier reps, whomever, they're buddies, but I have literally, even in the last year, and it's not like you guys are brand new, I've had, I love you if you're listening, I'm not going to name names, but I've had, and I mess with them, I've had arrogant carrier reps of other dental carriers who they say, hey, who'd we lose that case to? Or why didn't we get this case? Or, and I respect their checking in. And I'll tell them Beam, and they say, and I say, why? And I say, well, guys, they were more competitive on everything. They were flexible on long-term rate locks. Like, I love 3-year rate locks. It's appealing to employers. We don't get it every time. We don't need it every time, but there's little things. It's not just the Beam Brush. It's not just the perks. There's the way you are able to work with advisors and try to compensate them fairly, as opposed to a standard industry graded scale or a flat whatever. And the big picture is these carriers and a lot of the reps have come back and they laugh. They're like, what? Beam's a joke, man. I don't even know how they're in business. And these are their words, I'm telling you. And I laugh. I'm on the phone or Zoom and I'm like, well, I mean, I've been placing them successfully for now almost 5 years. And every group continues to roll over and we continue to grow the book and we hear nothing but amazing things. So, and again, I'm not going to do it on the record, but guys will mess with each other. So I have some choice words and I'm like, you're out of your mind. Like, you should stop what you're doing and go work for them. Like, what are you doing here? So it is amazing when they start to have a light bulb go off and they realize why they're losing business. But I think a lot of it has to do with the passion that an advisor or broker has to do something different and to offer something different. Because I've met too many advisors and brokers and consultants across the country in all my years. I've been in the benefits business almost 25 years. And unfortunately, a lot of them are very much still placing Blue Cross Medical and Delta Dental and MetLife Dental, and that's just what they've done. And they get a big old bonus every year, and they don't care. They don't want to do anything different. So I think that is hurting the industry, but it's also hurting the end user, the true consumer, the employee, and of course, the employer.
That's the key point I think that you just hit on is every decision we make as a business is working backwards from what's best for the customer.
Right.
And that sort of customer first approach always seems obvious, but if you actually go in and inspect many industries, not, I think benefits might be one of these, but if you go to many industries, everybody talks about the customer very esoterically, but how they act is either selfishly on behalf of their own P&L, which is pretty common, or they act on behalf of whatever they perceive their actual customer to be. Sometimes that's Wall Street, right? They're trying to manufacture earnings, right? So they're really serving shareholders instead of customers. Sometimes it's major distributors. So it's, is some major manufacturer that partners with Walmart, are they worried about the end customer or are they worried about keeping Walmart happy, right? Like that's an interesting question. And we think that dynamic exists, at least to some degree, in how business is often done in the benefits industry, where in order to keep your broker partners happy, you are doing certain actions that might be in favor of, what keeps my top broker happy on the golf course, right? Instead of, well, what's best for the customer? And we think certain things that might be best for the customer include offering more choice to small businesses in particular, because we think they just haven't had a ton of choice or a ton of differentiation. And we think that having a digital first approach to the customer journey is really beneficial on these high administration lines of coverage. Dental and vision are great examples of this, where there's lots of claims that get filed relative to like life and disability claims, or there's a lower incidence rate, right? And so because there's a higher incidence of claims, you're actually engaging with and interacting with the carrier pretty often, filing claims, checking in on claims, leveraging the call center, engaging with your rep or with an account manager. And so those are difficult businesses to run, difficult lines of coverage to run, because there's a lot of administrative complexity. And so we think you get paid in this business for doing customer first actions that are in favor of a more delightful interaction, whether that's with a human or with a piece of software that make something automated or answer the question before you ask it, or make a interaction really slick and easy instead of laborious and complex. And nobody wants to sit on the phone waiting for, the call rep to pick up, and it takes 10 minutes and then they
don't want to be
can't.
Comcast. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the reputation of the typical interaction with, many businesses. And so we think that there's, a service model and a tech-enabled service model that can really benefit the customer, whether you're defining that as your broker, as the business owner, or as that end member that's just seeking to get a dental checkup or something like that. So we think there's a lot of innovation that hits at multiple levels of this business. And for us, just simply saying, well, what's best for the customer ends up clarifying a lot of otherwise difficult questions.
So I heard from, and I work with a number of exceptional Beam sales reps and service folks across your company, but I've heard a few of them tell me over the years that your focus is more quote unquote small or maybe smallish mid-sized business. But I want to hear your take on it, and the why. But I also want to hear. I want my audience to hear, and I hope I'm not over speaking for you. Although if you have an influx of business, that's not a terrible thing. I've sent some larger groups to you, and you guys crush it. I mean, multiple hundreds, even over 1,000, and it's just got to be the right fit, I believe. I mean, it might not be your target, but I don't want brokers and advisors and consultants, that's who listens mostly to this show. I don't want them to think that you can't or wouldn't be open to a conversation with one of your reps to really to figure out if there's a way to bring it into a little bit larger group than maybe they're used to sending you. Tell me, am I wrong? Am I right? You tell me.
No, I think that's really well put. So we work broadly across the fully insured spectrum. So we have customers as small as 2 lives all the way up to maybe 2,000 on the high end. But most of our customers are down market. They're small group. They're under 50. They're under 100. And really the reason for that is we think that is the most underserved segment of the market. And the benefits, product, flexibility just gets pretty limited with many carriers as you move down market. You're going to be on shelf or book rates down market. You're going to be on eligibility requirement restrictions down market. You're going to be on very restrictive rate lock flexibility or plan design flexibility down market. And a lot of that is frankly induced not by the customer's preference. Again, this is something where we take the customer first approach. It's by the system limitations of the carriers that we're competing against.
Sure.
They can't handle the administrative load of doing so many customized things for those smaller customers, which makes a ton of sense. If you have to do a big system configuration to enable a 190/70 plan or something, an exotic dental plan design, you might be willing to do that for 1,000 life group, but you're not going to do a custom configuration for a 4 life group.
Sure.
And so Beam, being a digitally native company founded by engineers and being a tech business that happens to be in the benefits business, we can enable and have built our systems with much more flexible architecture to be able to enable a lot of that customization and capability set that, of course, advantages us up and down market, but it really becomes a delighter and a differentiator the further down market you go. So we think we do a great job regardless of the customer profile, but our differentiators just become highly magnified on those very small groups, which is, I think, why we're thought of in the market as a small group carrier.
Yeah, hey, it works really well for me. My average size is definitely would be considered small, mid-size, but like I said, we do have some multi-thousand person accounts, and then we have the small ones as well. We're equal opportunity size wise. We want to help everybody we can. Quick question: any future plans to dip your toe into some administrative plans, ASO plans, self-funded, or dip and try to compete in some legacy HMO plans, or no?
We're pretty focused right now on just expanding inside the fully insured space. We really like building those relationships, frankly, and really like the SMBs that we get to support. So for our business's near-term future, at least, it's just about actually telling our story to more and more distribution partners, GA, national brokers, smaller direct broker business, and then opening up more geographies like North Carolina, where I assume most small businesses have never even heard of us in North Carolina. So we're going to be telling our story like it's totally fresh eyes in that market here pretty soon, even though we've been around as a business for 10 years.
So we're gonna start to wrap up, and I want to end with some really cool stuff about the other products you've expanded to. But I can't have you on without talking about artificial intelligence and AI, because it's a key. I've seen it to be a key component in how you quote and how renewals come in. And by the way, I'm a Beam customer. I have a dozen employees across the country, virtually W-2s. I gave them the choice. I said, you put in any dental you want. I don't care. Yeah, I'm a more employee-centric. So you guys pick it. You do the work to quote it, but you guys pick it and you put it in, and we'll handle it. And my team unanimously picked Beam, and they love it. And we got our Beam renewal literally just a couple weeks ago. I think we're I'd be lying if I said I know when we are. We're coming up soon. And it had on there I forget the term, forgive me, but it had on the renewal perks discount or whatever it's called. Expand on that though. Talk about the AI and what it's doing for groups with respect to quoting and renewals.
When we first launched Beam, we saw meaningful opportunity to innovate on how underwriting happens in that small business space in particular. So where that shows up is how we leverage AI, and specifically machine learning in this case, to better understand the true underlying risk characteristics being exuded by any given group. And as we know, all small businesses are not created equal, but that's kind of how the industry treats them. That's the shelf rating strategy, which is a very legitimate actuarial technique. But a small business that has a younger audience is going to consume benefits differently than an older audience, and location matters and plan design matters and other demographics matter too. So what Beam does is we offer custom rates that allow us to better predict, or are reflective of our ability to better predict, who is likely to be higher or lower utilizers of the plan. So that way we can take more of a bottoms up first principles approach to price, and delivering a price and market that we think of as being super competitive based on the true underlying risk profile of that particular group. How that shows up is, if you see a great price from Beam, it's likely because we believe that you represent great risk in the market, and we want to build a profitable carrier, of course, and we want to make sure that your renewals aren't getting dragged all over the place just because we didn't get the price right up front. So we really take seriously the opportunity to get it right on the first contract, and then be able to have ideally nominal renewals, basically whatever the rate of inflation is from there forward. So that way we can build a very, very long-term relationship with our customers. And the further opportunity that we saw over time is to reflect the preventative care being displayed inside of a group in the renewal as well. So we actually give credits to our customers if they're using their Beam brushes, which is daily preventative care, and then using their cleanings benefit, which is just standard 2 cleanings per year inside of a typical dental benefit plan design, because we know that getting those preventative care appointments and those daily dental hygiene habits are going to yield fewer fillings, crowns, bridges, root canals, implants over time. And that, of course, will create a long-term profitable relationship, even if in the short term we're using it to actually discount renewals.
That's to me what's brilliant. And look, maybe I don't know, maybe other carriers are doing that behind the scenes and I don't know about it, but I like how you explain it and talk about it. And then in the renewal, it's itemized. Like, it literally says where the discount's coming from, and you're basically saying, here's why we had to keep your rate flat or raise it slightly or whatever the case may be. Let's talk about your other products, because one of the last questions I typically ask anybody on the show, particularly if it's somebody who founded a company like yours, is I always say something to the effect of blah, 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 look into the future. How does Beam continue to innovate and so forth and so on? But I think you're doing that now by looking to grow your disability business. I know you have a partnership with the Hartford. You're looking to grow your ancillary business, life and sup health. I know you have a partnership with Nationwide. Can you talk about those either together or separately if they're unique?
About 2 years ago, we took on a new challenge as a business. A lot of the feedback that we had been receiving from our customers and from our broker partners was, love what you guys are doing to digitize dental insurance and vision as well. It's easy. It's fantastic for my customer base. Now, can you please do that with all the other ancillary lines? Because I need to be able to bundle more products together for efficiency, which makes a ton of sense. And so we started getting that feedback more and more, and took on the challenge of building out a more robust portfolio of ancillary benefits, which meant ultimately launching life, long and short-term disability, and the sup health lines, accident, critical illness, and hospital, in a basically 24-month window. So we took this big chunk out of our R&D roadmap and pulled in a lot of resources from around the business to make it the #1 initiative in our business for the past couple of years. With that, we also recast the business and market from being known as Beam Dental to Beam Benefits, which is really reflective of this bigger product portfolio. And over the past 2 years, we've built and launched and now are scaling a variety of new products. And now we're starting to shift our guns back toward distribution to really tell that story, to make sure it's landing in market. And that way we're getting looks in our RFPs, not just dental RFPs, not just dental and vision RFPs, but we are doing dental, vision, life, DI, and sup health as often as we can. Because again, we think it's best for the customer. It builds a stickier, longer term relationship. And these are products that we know are highly valued in the market. And we've built some amazing partnerships with high value carriers that are supporting these products. For years, we've partnered with VSP to support our vision experience and their amazing network of eye doctors around the country. We partner with Nationwide on the Sup Health and Lifelines, taking advantage of their reputation and balance sheet. And then the newest one or latest one is short and long-term disability with the Hartford, who we thought of as the best-in-class disability carrier in the market. And that's created an amazing opportunity for us to not just have these products in general, but to have a really great experience for all of our SMB customers.
So the paper, right, the behind the scenes, probably the most important part, the paper is through the Hartford for disability and through Nationwide for life, Sup Health. Vision is through VSP, and Beam Dental is on its own. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you got it.
And let me look at it from a broker employer perspective, right? I'm an employer, and I do love that idea of having it all together. I'm already with Beam, and the advisor says, hey, believe it or not, we can now quote and potentially put it together. Would the Beam Dental Vision life and disability, or life through Nationwide, disability through Hartford, and all the ancillary through Nationwide, would all that be through one invoice with Beam? So it to the consumer, the customer, the employer, the payroll, the accounts payable, they see it as one bill, or is it segmented?
It's a single bill and it's a single experience. So a very
nice.
important point here is you're getting an opportunity to live in the best of both worlds, in our view, where we've selected and curated these best-in-class partners, but it still feels like a unified single carrier experience, which is what Beam does best. We build that amazing digital customer experience on top of everything. So not only is it a consolidated unified bill, it's also a single enrollment, purely digital through our Beam sign process. It's a single quote process. It's a single renewal process.
That's
it's a
great.
single claims processing process. So for us, it's all about this delightful customer experience, even though behind the scenes, we're engaging best-in-class partners to do what they do best on these various product lines.
That's great. Now what if I'm a broker listening and I already sell and have a contract with Hartford Disability and Life, and I already well, I don't know, mate. I've been around a long time. Honest to goodness, didn't even know Nationwide was in this part of the business. So let's focus on the Hartford side. How does that impact or affect? Maybe I like Beam, maybe I'm already selling Hartford. How can I marry the two as opposed to going out to Hartford directly and going to Beam directly?
Yeah, we think of it as a choice that we are going to leave up to the broker. If a broker already has a fantastic relationship with the Hartford, they can actually get Beam Dental and Vision products through the Hartford's sales team in the under 500 space. So it's a partnership that's more expansive than just our disability plans being powered by the Hartford. It's a reverse partnership where we're also powering their dental and vision experience.
That's great.
So you can engage your maybe longstanding Hartford relationship and get all of these products, or you can engage your Beam relationship and our Beam sales rep and get these products. So we think of it as the choice of the broker based on their relationship and what they think is best for their customers.
So last couple minutes, rapid fire, my friend, rapid fire. Got to think quick. Yeah. What's your and you can't say being the founder and CEO of Beam, that doesn't qualify. So before Beam, right? What's your best and or worst job you've ever had? Any quick story you can share?
I only had one job before Beam because I started our company when I was in college, and my job was to drag kegs of beer all over Coney Island in Cincinnati, Ohio, their picnic grounds, and tap the kegs to kick off corporate picnic parties that would happen throughout the summer. So it's like a classic minimum wage summer job that involved a lot of lifting, and Bud Light spraying me in the face every time I tapped a keg.
So were you the go-to guy in college to tap the keg and get it going?
I would say that some of the people I did this job with were very good at losing a keg or two, which then ended up somehow in the back of their truck.
Love it.
No name to be shared.
I love it. I love it. I heard a rumor that you like to play drums. Were you ever in a rock band? Did you ever want to be?
This is an appropriately named podcast. I started playing drums when I was 10 and still love it to this day. And I follow all the great drummers, and I'm like obsessed with percussion. I still play. I've been in bands throughout my life, and great way to blow off steam too.
Who's the GOAT of drumming? Who, as my son would say, your partner is Alex Curry. So my son's favorite basketball player, legitimately, he's been Curry for Halloween 3 years in a row. is Steph Curry from the Warriors. That's his GOAT. Who's your GOAT drummer?
My personal inspiration to start was Travis Barker from Blink-182.
Sure.
He was like my guy. The actual GOAT, though, is Buddy Rich, famous big band jazz drummer.
Never even heard of him.
Yeah, an iconic celebrity from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Your era, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, my contemporary.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, man, you said it all. It's been such a blast having you on the show. I know you're not exactly hard to find, right? We're all in sales in some capacity. Salespeople don't hide. But if somebody wanted to reach out and meet somebody from Beam, if they wanted to talk to you directly, not that it's going to be that easy, but what would be the best way for them to learn more about you or Beam? I know, of course, beambenefits.com. If they sent you a message on LinkedIn, would you reply, or do you have an intern doing that?
I'm very good at curating and responding to my LinkedIn messages. And that's actually, I think, the best way to do it. So Alex Frommeyer on LinkedIn, reach out. I love meeting people in the industry. We especially love building great distribution relationships. And that's a big focus for us as a business. So don't be shy. I'm easy to find.
But as I always say, don't try to sell them crap. I mean, we don't need any more people with 400 page. In fact, I'm your salespeople. If you're doing it, don't do it. Don't send brokers 400 pages as an intro. Try to meet them, develop a relationship first, and then slowly but surely work on that business.
We call them partnerships for a reason.
That's exactly right. I like it. Well, with that, look, man, I just show up and ask some fun questions and get to know my guests. I got the easy job. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rocking podcast, I'm Eric Silverman, right? You're Alex Frommeyer. You always have been. You always will be. And for everybody listening, thanks for tuning in for another episode. And stay tuned next week, where I'm sure we're going to have somebody who is a rock star rocking it out. And as I always say, don't just have a great day, make it a great day. Thanks, Fro.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.